What's the best part about having season tickets? For some, it's the fact that you get to sit in the same seats every time, and you can build relationships with the people around you. That seat feels sacred, and that section brings back memories every time you're at a game. For some, it's the added perks that you get, like exclusive items, discounts on local businesses, and so on. But for a lot of people, the best part about having season tickets has to be the fact that not only do you get first dibs on playoff tickets, but you get playoff tickets at face value. I've heard people say that for most teams, buying season tickets is like betting on your team to be successful, where in many instances for sports like baseball, basketball, and hockey, especially if it's a team that does not sell out, it makes no sense to buy season tickets when you can buy tickets for cheaper on the secondary market. However, if they're good and you get the extra games, it's 100% worth it. Heck, speaking from experience as a fan of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who had season tickets for the 2023 playoff run when they made it to the World Series, the cheapest ticket to get into the stadium for each of those 3 World Series games was somewhere around $500. I was getting in for way less than that. If you have season tickets, you're not paying 4 figures to watch your team in a playoff game at their home stadium. You're not constantly refreshing, trying to find the best deals. In the days before the internet and online ticketing, you're not scrambling to figure out if the game is sold out or not, or sweating at the ticket office, wondering if there's a ticket left. You're not panicking whether your ticket is real or counterfeit when you buy it from a man outside the stadium. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario. Suppose your name is Barry, and your friend is named Chuck. You decide that you're going to give your season tickets for the year to Chuck. You can't go to the games for one reason or another, but you don't want to sell your season tickets. So you let your friend buy them off of you. Chuck goes to every game, and then your team makes the playoffs. Barry wants to go to the game, and he was the one whose name is on the ticket. Chuck says, "Not so fast, my friend. You gave me your season tickets. That includes the playoffs." Barry says, "No, you bought the season tickets for the regular season off of me. We never talked about the playoffs. Who is the owner of the tickets? Who gets to go to the playoff game? Is it Barry or is it Chuck?" Well, this isn't just a bizarre law school hypothetical that makes your head spin in circles while the gunners in the class try to show off and ask about other hypotheticals added onto it. Like, what would happen if the facts of this case were entirely different, while the rest of us just want to move on and are questioning why you can't ask this in office hours because now you're confusing the rest of us and wasting all our time? And no, I'm not still having flashbacks about that every night when I go to bed. And no, law school definitely did not scar me for life. Thanks for asking. I bring this up because with the team that you've been watching this entire time, as in the 1977 Denver Broncos, this hypothetical was real. And it's a story about season tickets and ticket ownership that's so bizarre that nearly half a century later, it deserves a deep dive today. Because this is the story behind one of the craziest ticketing controversies in the history of the Denver Broncos and in the history of the National Football League. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff and want to learn more, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the Mile High meltdown over tickets at Mile High. But before I talk about what exactly went down, we need some context to understand just who the 1977 Denver Broncos were, and how good of a team they were. For the first 17 years of the Broncos' existence as a franchise, they were snake-bitten and had never made it to the playoffs, being the only team in the AFC outside of the expansion Seattle Seahawks to never have a playoff appearance under their belt. After the controversial firing of John Ralston after the 1976 season, despite a 9-5 record, a lot of people thought heading into 1977 that the Broncos would be fine, but nothing spectacular, likely hovering around mediocrity, especially with a tough schedule that had them taking on the defending Super Bowl champion Oakland Raiders twice, the Dallas Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Colts, and others. Of the 28 franchises in the NFL, the Broncos were right at the middle of the pack when it came to their odds, according to Vegas, to win the Super Bowl. And seeing as only 8 teams made the playoffs, with 4 teams making it in each conference, very few people thought that the Broncos were going to do much of anything in 1977. And very few people thought that this was the year that the drought was going to be broken. The majority of people were wrong. Dead wrong. Because in 1977, the Denver Broncos emerged as one of the best teams in all of football. Starting quarterback Craig Morton, who was acquired from the New York Giants after the Giants gave up a first-round pick to get him, only for him to flop in spectacular fashion for the team, had the best year of his career, throwing 14 touchdown passes and finishing second in the MVP voting, only behind Chicago Bears running back and Hall of Famer Walter Payton. Oddly enough, despite finishing second in the MVP voting, Morton did not make it to the Pro Bowl. Imagine that. The Broncos started the year 6-0 and never looked back, en route to a 12-2 season where they got the number 1 seed in the conference. And of course, a big part of that was the Orange Crush defense, one of the greatest defenses in the history of football. Denver finished the 1977 season allowing just a hair over 10 points per game, holding their opponents to single digits in half of their games, and only allowing more than 14 points one time all season. Between the Steel Curtain, the Grit Splits, and the Orange Crush, 1977 was a great year for defense, but I digress. To give you an idea of how good the Orange Crush was, against the defending champion Raiders, they had a game where they forced 8 turnovers. No one could run on the Broncos whatsoever, as the Broncos allowed just 5 rushing touchdowns and 3.3 yards per carry all season, which was, unsurprisingly, the top total in football. And the Broncos were so good defensively that they had a whopping 6 players, so more than half their starting defense, receive either Pro Bowl honors, AP All-Pro honors, or both. The wait was finally over. For the first time in franchise history, the Denver Broncos were going to the playoffs. And up next for the Broncos was this game right here, a divisional round battle on their home field against the Pittsburgh Steelers, winners of 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. And for Lyman Rhodes, an attorney in Denver who moved to Denver in the 1960s and adopted the Broncos as their team, this was a big moment for him. Oddly enough, Rhodes worked in sports during the 1980s and even did some free agent scouting for the Denver Broncos, but that's years down the road. Rhodes decided to buy season tickets for the Broncos for the 1977 season, buying them off of his mailman, Jesse LeBang, who he was friendly with. And obviously, there's a big emphasis on the word was, as you're about to find out. I'm not sure why LeBang sold the tickets to Rhodes. Maybe LeBang couldn't attend the games in 1977 for some reason, or maybe he was disgusted by the firing of Ralston and thought he was just wasting money at this point and decided to cut his losses. Regardless, Rhodes went to every home game during that campaign and was at Mile High when they went 6-1 across their home slate. This was back in the days of paper tickets, So LeBang handed Rhodes all of his tickets at the start of the season for a predetermined price, and Rhodes would go to the 7 games. However, now there's an 8th game. Now you have this playoff game at home with the Broncos against the Steelers in the divisional round on Christmas Eve. So naturally, Rhodes, who bought the season tickets off of LeBang, was expecting LeBang to give him the playoff tickets. And LeBang said, "Nope, these aren't your tickets. I'm still the owner of the season tickets. I'm going to the playoff game with the tickets that I bought." Which, of course, raises the obvious question. Whose tickets are these? Rhodes made a deal at the start of the season with LeBang to buy his season tickets. Season tickets include first dibs at playoff games. LeBang, however, was the original owner of the tickets. Rhodes felt that he was entitled to the tickets because he bought LeBang's season tickets all season. And LeBang felt that he was entitled to the tickets because he was the name on the account and the Broncos gave him the tickets directly. And this dispute between the two got so heated and so ugly that it ended up going to court, which I can't say I'm surprised by, seeing as Lyman Rhodes was literally an attorney, so he knew a thing or two about the legal process and felt extremely confident that he was going to win the case. If a lawyer hates your guts so much that he's willing to take you to court himself, that's when you know, especially when the lawyer is dishing out money to hire another lawyer to represent him. Yeah, before getting to the details of the case, Rhodes did not represent himself, as he hired a lawyer to represent him, which is how you know he's ticked off and how you know he knows his stuff. Because any lawyer worth their weight will never represent themselves in court, because they know how freaking stupid that is. That old saying that he who represents himself in court has a fool for a client held true here. In the court case, Rhodes and his attorney argued that when he bought the season tickets off of LeBang, that this was for the entire season, and not just the regular season. We don't know whether there was a written contract for these tickets, or if everything was orally done, which, by the way, never agree to anything orally with something of this magnitude. However, what we do know is that never, not once, did Rhodes and LeBang discuss at the start of the season, during the initial transaction, what happens if the Broncos make the playoffs and host a game. Usually when there's a contract, you're supposed to hash out the contingencies and what happens if certain scenarios play out. You're supposed to exercise foreseeability. However, to give you an idea of how bad the Broncos were historically and how much this season came out of nowhere, the Broncos making the playoffs was so unforeseeable that the judge himself didn't chastise the parties for not thinking about it. Seriously. As Judge Joseph Lilly said, no one expected the Broncos to make the playoffs. They hadn't in 17 years. Keep in mind that a good amount of time, if the provision isn't written in the four corners of the contract, it won't be honored. So the judge openly admitting that the Broncos have always sucked, this season came out of nowhere, and no one expected them to make the playoffs, so I have to make a ruling here based on what I deem is reasonable, is just hysterical to me. It never crossed anyone's mind what happens if the Broncos are good. And because this was never talked about between the two parties, Judge Lilly ruled that for this game right here, Lyman Rhodes, as in the man who bought the tickets off of his mailman, was entitled to go to the game, and was entitled to the tickets at face value. He was the owner of the season tickets, and season tickets include the regular season and the postseason, as when you buy season tickets, you get the rights to the tickets for the entire season. Otherwise, they'd just be called regular season tickets. Lilly said that Rhodes would suffer irreparable harm if he couldn't attend the game, saying, "Seeing a game on television is completely different from seeing it in person." The irony in all of this, which Judge Lilly didn't know at the time, is that no one could watch the first quarter of the Broncos-Steelers playoff game because it was on NBC and was the second game of the doubleheader, with the Colts-Raiders game being first. And that game went into double overtime. So Judge Lilly was 100% right in saying that seeing the game on TV was a lot different, because when it came to this game that you've been watching, you'd only watch 75% of it versus being in the stadium and being able to watch 100% of it. Whether it would truly be irreparable harm, that's up for debate. Because on one hand, it's a game that you'll be able to watch regardless, just in a different medium. But on the other hand, there might not be a way to correct the situation properly, as there's only one chance to see the first playoff game in franchise history. It's not like a concert that has 4 dates. In case you couldn't tell, I think this judge likes football and is pretty well versed in the sport, and might be a Broncos fan, and Rhodes drew a pretty favorable judge with this one. Just like that, Rhodes, who went to all 7 games for the Broncos, was about to go to Game 8, and eventually Game 9, after the Broncos won this game against Pittsburgh by a final score of 34-21 to advance to the AFC Championship against the Oakland Raiders. Now, you might be wondering throughout this entire ordeal, why the heck did Rhodes not just buy other tickets? Why did he take his mailman to court instead of buying other tickets? Was this really worth it? Well, in 2026, maybe not so much. When you consider the legal fees involved, today, it probably costs more to take someone to court for face value tickets than it would be to buy tickets on the secondary market. But back in 1977, especially for a team like the Broncos, who had never made the playoffs before, this would involve camping out and waiting for a long time at the ticket booth, buying physical tickets from people charging an exorbitant amount of money that might not even be legit, and a bunch of other hassles that, simply put, do not exist today. Plus, Rhodes was a freaking lawyer. He knew he had a strong case. And if lawyers are anything from experience, it's stubborn, arrogant, cocky, and confident. If he had a chance to flex, he was going to flex. I should note that neither person in this story is still with us today, as LeBang passed away in 2006 at the age of 67, while Rhodes passed away in 2019 at the age of 76. So if anyone's watching this video and debating what to do about their season tickets, if they can't use them for whatever reason, but they want to give them to a friend, here's a word to the wise. Talk about what you're going to do if that team makes it to the playoffs. I don't care if this team is the Seattle Seahawks or the lowly Arizona Cardinals. Make sure you set up a plan for what happens if the team becomes good and hosts a playoff game. Put it in writing and map out the contingencies. Draw up a contract. You don't want to be remembered in life as the man who had to sue his mailman for playoff tickets. And vice versa, you don't want to be remembered in life as the mailman who tried to cheat the system. Because on Christmas Eve in 1977, all Lyman Rhodes wanted for Christmas was the tickets that he felt he was entitled to. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.